Hang on. Hey! And? Hey! Hello, everybody. Did you like our new theme music? That was our new theme tune. If you listen to the podcast, you've probably heard it. I'm starting on time. If anybody's late, you'll have to catch it on the recording. So anyway, welcome everybody. A couple of things for you. If you have any questions, please send them in the direct chat messages to Sian. I'm going to answer those at the end. And I also be very happy to take any comments or any thoughts on some of the topics that we're sharing. I'm happy for you to add those in at the end, but I want to cover the content that I've got prepared, if that's you're okay with you all, as promised, so that if you do have to rush off, you don't miss anything. So let's get cracking. Hot topics and trends in the world of paid speaking. It's not easy always to know what's going on in the world of paid speaking. If you're asking your friends in the speaking world, they'll tell you from their point of view of what's happening. And it's hard to get sort of a global feel and a general feel from lots of people because they don't tell you. There's no one place. But I want to think about the world of paid speaking, not as a speaking industry, because there isn't such a thing really as a speaking industry. I want to focus on meetings and events, because I think that will give us a clearer indication of what's really happening in the world of paid speaking. And I want to sort of talk to you about different types of events as well. And the market, the strong thing to remember, the really important thing to remember is the market is actually really large for the paid speaking world. It's actually really, it's still buoyant, it's still great. So even if you're having a bad time at the moment sitting at home, don't feel bad. It's a big market, it's coming back, it will come back. And it's a great industry to be in. So please stay positive about it. What are we going to talk about? So we're going to talk about some meetings and events, so I can give you an example of the paid speaking market that I'm referring to. And I'm not going to list every single type of meeting and event, but I just want to give you an idea of the main types that exist and that we're seeing. I want to look at some of the trends. In fact, I think I've got 5 trends that I want to talk to you about. They're not the only ones, but they're ones we're seeing, and most of them are positive. There are a couple not so positive, but we've got to take the good with the bad, a bit of reality, I'm afraid. I also want to look at the top 10 topics, and we will give you the source of this information. We'll share with you where these top 10 topics came from. We will share the full report, in fact, with you in an email following this event, including the recording. I don't know if it'll be later today or Monday, but you will have it in your inboxes because you signed up. So hopefully you are ready to go. Let's get cracking. So the types of meetings and events that I'm talking about are events such as conventions. These are the really big events. So large association events, tech gatherings, scientific gatherings, the big conventions. And if this was your market before the pandemic, you've had a bad time, and I'm sorry about that, but conventions have had a really bad time the last year. I think they're going to continue to have a bit of a bad time going forward. The other meetings are the conferences. These might be annual conferences, which might be a networking event, it might be a learning event, it might be a leadership or management conference, a kick-off conference, and usually, again, external to the organisation. And again, if this is your market, you've had a pretty rubbish year. I'm sorry about that. The other events, and you'll see where I'm going here, I think. You'll probably catch me up. Are client events. These are the events, I like to call them show-off events, where you are showing off to your clients and prospects how wonderful you are as an organisation. You might be bringing a thought leader in to share some great expertise. You might be doing it over a nice lunch, over a nice dinner. And these are the events that are often done by software companies, banks, financial services, legal, hedge funds, that kind of thing. And again, if this is your market, you've had a bad year. There are many more of these kinds of events. These are sort of the big external events that happen outside of the organisations that are running them. And these events have all had a really bad year. And if that's what your focus has been, if you have been an MC in these events, a keynote speaker, a conference speaker, you've had a pretty rubbish time, and I feel for you. But the other side of the market, the other side of paid speaking, are the internal events. And again, I'm not giving you an exhaustive list, but I'm just going to give you some examples. These are the workshops, the masterclasses, the smaller events that can happen either within the company, within their own meeting rooms, or externally to them, but it's internal teams generally. These have continued. They have continued, some in person, very small groups where we've been allowed to, otherwise virtually for sure. The briefing meetings, the strategic meetings for leaders or department meetings have continued. Very specific, very topical, sometimes quarterly, sometimes monthly. In many cases, very much more regularly than they were happening before. Informal learning, what am I talking about here? What we used to call lunch and learn. Obviously now you're having lunch at home, but you may still be learning. More informal events. And again, there's more of these types of meetings. But what you'll see is I've split them into the two worlds of paid speaking. The worlds of events that are external to the organisation, that take place elsewhere in bigger arenas, bigger venues, because they can't house them perhaps internally. And then the internal events. And these have continued. So if this has been your market, you've done well. If your foot was in the other market, you need to come across. And actually, in an ideal world, as a paid speaker, you'll straddle the two. Yeah? So these are the sort of meetings and events that I want to talk to you about today and the trends that we're seeing. Let's have a look. The first trend, everybody's been talking about hybrid and how wonderful hybrid is. And it is the solution. So let me remind you, in case you're not familiar with the term, and I'm sure you are, otherwise you've probably been hiding under your duvet for a year. But the hybrid is where you have both in-person and you have both virtual. And that could be in-person virtual audiences, it could be in-person virtual speakers, or it could be a mixture of the two. And I use the word in person because it could be live in person or it could be recorded in person. And again, it could be a mixture of the two. So this is the hybrid. And even we were saying this is the future, and it will be here and it is the future. But do you know what? It's not going as well as we had all hoped. We've seen a few not do so well. And let me explain what I mean by that. In reality, hybrid is really, really difficult. And if you've experienced hybrid, I hope you're going to share your comments with the group. Do chat freely in the group. And if you want to share any experiences later, do let Sean know. Hybrid is difficult. It's difficult for the organizer and it's difficult for the speaker. It's also very expensive to do it properly. So let's think about it. Let's think about where we've seen hybrid before. If, like me, you are a TV show fan and you've had the opportunity to go and watch a TV show being recorded live, you'll know that there's a live in-person audience and then the TV crew are recording the show. But when you go to that hybrid type event, what you find is that the TV crew doesn't actually care about you, the audience, which is why you're actually being invited for free. They want you to bring the atmosphere. They want you to bring the laughs. And in fact, if somebody makes a mistake in that recording, they'll go back and do it again and again and again. And you've got to react again and again and again. That hybrid experience isn't very pleasant. And the recording is not live. The transmission is not broadcast live. It's recorded and edited. So these are professional people, but they're not producing a hybrid event like we're trying to do in the events world. Take another example, which is slightly nearer to what we're trying to do in the events world. Take the example of the Royal Variety Show in the UK. My team have been, wave at me, you've been with me to the Royal Variety. And I know I can tell they're listening now, so they're waving. Sian's not listening, she's not waving. Thank you, Sian. We've been to the Royal Variety. And again, it's an experience where you have live, and you pay a high price to go to the Royal Variety Show. And you have these experienced performers on stage, and it's all recorded. But it doesn't go out live, because here, the experience has got to be good for both parties. It's got to be good for the people sitting in the audience who've paid a lot of money to the charity. And again, they're not trying to do what the hybrid events are trying to do. And then think about the live TV shows like the morning television we have here in the UK. That does go out live, but it doesn't have a live audience. So what we're trying to achieve, organisations are trying to achieve in hybrid, even the most experienced presenters, the most experienced broadcasters, the most experienced technicians are scared to do. So it's no wonder there's been problems. What does that mean for you as a speaker? I think you've got to ask some really important questions about any hybrid event you're invited to. You need to ask, which audience is most important? Which one should you favour? Because I really don't think you can broadcast to both 100%. You cannot make the experience 100% for both at the moment. I don't know, as we go on, maybe you can. Do let me know. We saw an event recently with one of our speakers who was being beamed into a hybrid event. The audience was in person, and she and the other speakers were in a studio. So this is sort of a compromise, which you may see. Being in a studio meant that there was the atmosphere, there was the dynamic between the presenters, that they could hear each other's content and, comment on it. And it went, so it added to that experience. But none of the speakers were actually in person live at the event. And that may be something that people will do. But anyway, going back to what you need to do, ask some really good questions about how is this going to work? What is the real technicality? What do you need to do to make it as good as you can? Which audience is the priority? And get as much rehearsal and practice as you possibly can. I think it will require a lot more preparation than anything else you may have done in isolation. So hybrid, much more expensive than we thought, much harder to do. It will be here to stay, but be prepared for some uncomfortable experiences and some difficulties and some challenges. Put more time into it than you might have thought you would need. Okay, another trend, and actually I don't know if you'd call it a trend, but it's, I suppose, a slight prediction, and I'm very interested to hear from our futurists in the audience, because I know we have a few futurists. I hope they've turned up in person so we can pick their brains a bit later. But we're going to see more disruption due to COVID. It has a long tail. I was speaking to a fellow speaker bureau owner. I mean, obviously I've retired now as a speaker bureau owner, but a former fellow colleague in Singapore yesterday, who was telling me that Singapore had opened up and is now closing back down again. We in the UK are opening up. Will we close back down again? I think you might have to prepare for the fact that we might. And until globally we have really got a grip on this, I think we're going to be open and closing, open and closing. There's more disruption to come. COVID still has a long tail. What does that mean? It means that we're seeing hesitation in the market. We're seeing hesitation about booking events in the autumn because there's not total certainty that they'll go ahead. And those that are booking, I think it's really important, if you are booked for an in-person event, that you have something in your contract, a clause in your contract that says what happens if we go virtual. And I do advise you to take a deposit, because you might be postponing if things do get disrupted again. The other thing we've seen is that clients who had booked events abroad this autumn are bringing them back into the UK, and you might be seeing that too, which for some of our speakers is a relief because they didn't want to get onto planes, and I don't blame them. I'm a bit dodgy about that. We'll have a little chat about that later, see how you feel. But we're seeing that some events that were going to be abroad are coming back. You might see that in your own territories where events for this autumn that were going to be abroad will come back. I have consulted with our COVID expert. Yes, we have one, because we're quite well connected. We know quite a few speakers and experts, so we've sought advice. And his advice is that he doesn't see things really settling down until probably the second quarter, of 2022, which is very depressing to hear. And that's only if we get these variants under control and the vaccines under control. So there's all of that to bear in mind as well. So I think you have to keep thinking about the virtual offering and virtual options for some time to come. I think you will still be looking at masks, testing, social distancing, vaccinations for a long time to come. And then here's the question, and I'd love some expertise on this, because I have a feeling that if one country in Europe starts to issue a vaccination passport, and I think I've heard some murmurings that it's happening in one particular country already, if they start asking for vaccination passports, I think it'll go across the board and everybody will be doing the same. So we'll have to deal with that too. And that might cause you to challenge some of your thinking if you are not wanting to or not able to have a vaccination. So I think we've got a lot more disruption ahead, I'm afraid, with regards to COVID. That's the bad news. Let's look at something positive. Okay, I always end on positive. I've got 3 positive trends for you that I'm very excited about. The first one, it's been around. This whole call for diversity and inclusion, it's been around forever. Finally, it's getting prioritised. It's getting prioritised on agendas, but it's getting prioritised. And I'm not talking about diversity. I'm actually talking about seeing it on programs, on conferences, across the board. It was very sad this week that I received a newsletter from a bureau that I admire very greatly, talking about diversity and inclusion, and 80% of the faces were white. And I thought, what is going on? We need to see diversity. We need to physically see it. So if you fit that category, if you have the ability to make a panel, a conference diverse, this is your moment. Upskill, whatever you need to do, upskill. And you know, one of the markets that's leading the way in this is Asia. So if you are based in Asia, this is your time. It's very exciting. So I'm really positive about that. And it genuinely is positive discrimination. And whatever you feel about that, the time has come and we need it. So I think it's good. I'm sure we'll have a debate about it later. So another positive change. Now, this is a huge one. This is a seismic shift. I love this. This is exciting changes in learning and development. Really exciting. Learning and development is no longer a nice to have. It's a strategic must have for big organisations, and that's wonderful. And we're seeing learning and development coming out from under HR and reporting directly to C-suite, directly to the board. That is so exciting. The implications of that are enormous for speakers and for experts. Let's talk about a couple of numbers, and all of these numbers will be shared with you in the report where we have pulled this all out, so you have it. You know I'm not going like that and making it up, okay? And we can back it all up. In 2020, 25% of learning and development had a seat at C-suite level. 2020, only a year ago. In 2021, that's now 70%. That is huge. This was a survey of 1,300 learning and development professionals in global organisations across the world, 27 countries, and there were also 3,200 leaders globally across the world that were interviewed over a period of a year. Fascinating stuff. So you'll get all that detail, and I've just pulled out some of the tidbits. So there's many more trends for you to look at, many more things. But I'm excited. What does that mean? That means that there's going to be joined up writing for all internal events, so that learning and development will have an influence across all of the events that affect employees and leaders. And because they're reporting into C-suite and they're reporting into the board, it will be in line with the directions of the organisation. I think that's powerful. I think that will help organisations create much more change. And what is it they're saying about it? They actually, those interviewed, those learning and development professionals, agreed that they are focused on rebuilding and reshaping their organisations for this year. So if you are a speaker or an expert that speaks to something that can help rebuild and reshape organisations, this is wonderful news for you. And learning and development is a great place for you to focus. The other wonderful thing about learning and development, they are getting bigger budgets. So again, exciting. Internal events with learning where you can make change will have bigger budgets. The L&D people have a much stronger say in what's going on. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. I can see texts coming up. I cannot read them because I will get distracted. But I'm hoping you're going woohoo and getting very excited. I think it's great. It's no longer about having a speaker for the sake of it. It's about actually feeding into the objectives of the organisation. That's great. Speakers will be looked at through a different lens. It means potentially that if you have the ability to have a longer term relationship with a client and you are a trusted speaker already with them, a trusted expert, you can do more. That means you need to do a bit of work on what you can deliver, on your programs, etc. You need to talk to L&D and you need to find out what they need. I think it's really exciting. But remember, your sales and your marketing needs to reflect all this. Otherwise, how are they going to know about it? So if we stop there, it's just brilliant. But I've got one more for you. One more, which is related to this very strongly. And it's going to have a great emphasis and an impact. The last trend I'm going to share with you is a greater emphasis on participant satisfaction. What does that mean in English, Maria? I reckon that means that there's going to be much more scrutiny with regards to feedback forms, feedback surveys, understanding what the participants are really getting out of this investment that is being put into them. What does that mean to you? I know what I would be doing if I was booked as a speaker to do something. I'd want to know what's on the feedback form. What are you tracking? And I'd want to have an influence. I'd want to be able to say, well, actually, for my session, I think you need to track this as well, and you need to track that. And then going forwards, you need to track this. And then you might need to bring me back to help you with regards to that because it relates to this. Have some conversations about how they're going to be measuring the feedback. There are huge opportunities there for you. I think it's great. The next stage to that, which I hope will come, and I know some of the very advanced organisations are there, it's going to come to you too. So maybe be one step ahead, and maybe some of you are, and that will be interesting. They're going to be looking at ROI, the return on that investment, the return on the investment they've made in you as a speaker, in you as an expert. So maybe you want to lead the way and say, this is the return. We always encourage you to focus on outcomes. Start talking about returns, okay? Those are the 5 trends that I'd like to share with you today. I'm sure there are others. We'll have a little chat. We will open it up to chat. But I know you want to know what the top 10 topics are, which is not easy to say unless you've got your teeth in straight. Top 10 topics. These are actually the top 10 skills that organisations are looking for in 2021. And they're quite big topics. There are subtopics. If your expertise is not in there, please do not panic. It doesn't mean you're not going to get booked, because every topic is needed for the right audience as long as it answers their problems. However, these are the top 10. And what I'd like you to be aware of, if it's a topic that is your topic, beware of the language that clients are using, because they keep changing their language and you need to stay up to date with it. So here's some thoughts for you then. At number 1, I sort of feel we need to do Top of the Pops music, but I don't want to get done for what royalties and things, or whatever it's called, copyright. I should have had Tom Morley drumming, I think, doing a drum roll. So, top 10. Number 1, probably no surprise, resilience. The surprise might be that it's got adaptability attached to it. So it's not only about being resilient, but being able to adapt as well. So if you are talking about resilience and adaptability, you are on the money, but beware, because there are a lot of people talking on that topic, which means you've got a lot of competition. So you've got to stand out, differentiate and be different. Otherwise, you're going to get lost. So that's topic number 1. At number 2, again, probably no surprise, tech and digital and everything that comes under that, which would include obviously AI and cyber, etc. So tech and digital, priority again for 2021. In at number 3, so this is interesting. It's not just communication, it's communication across remote teams. So that requires a bit of a specialism and a bit of understanding of how do you communicate across remote teams? What systems and processes can you be put in? That's interesting. So if you're a communication speaker, you want to be adding that across remote teams in some of your write-ups and descriptions. At number 4, emotional intelligence. Even more important now that we're on a screen. That ability to connect and understand, because we're not having those discussions maybe around the coffee machine. So that emotional intelligence to know how are your people really feeling, what's really going on. So this is a priority number 4 this year. Cross-functional collaboration. So it's not called teamwork anymore, which is what we used to call it in the bureau. We used to call it teamwork or collaboration. It's cross-functional collaboration. So, and again, it's not just within your team, so it's cross-function. So if you're talking about that, you might need to adapt some of your content and some of your delivery. Leading through change, no surprise. I mean, my goodness, I'm surprised it's not. The surprise is it's not number 1, because the changes that we've been going through have been huge. So leading through change is there. Leadership, everything related to that, very topical, of course. Number 7, we talked about it earlier. Diversity and inclusion. It's a priority for organisations. It's in the top 10. I'm glad to see it there. At number 8. Dealing with stress and being more mindful. Oh my goodness, dealing with stress. I could do some training on that if anybody's around. So that's not a surprise, I don't think. This next one's a surprise. Time management. And why is it a surprise? It's a surprise because of the wording, time management, because I try to think of time management more as productivity or energy management or attention management or focus. But clients are talking about time. Because for them, time is money. But of course, within that topic, all of those different subtopics appear. And it's interesting that it's here. Is it because there's a feeling that people aren't managing their time as well because they are more remote? I don't know. So some interesting topics, discussions around that topic there. So if you're a time management or used to talk about time management, brush it up. It's required. Bring it out again. And finally, this was in the top 5 last year. It's come down to number 10, creativity. I think it's probably always going to be there. So creativity being in the top 10, our good friend James Taylor will be very happy to hear that, James, if you're not listening in. So those are the top 10 topics. Now, where did we get this from? We're going to share this with you, but we got this from the LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report. As I said to you, 1,260 learning and development professionals. It's actually 3,080 global leaders and managers across 27 countries. So it's a really useful survey. This is the 5th year running that this report has been released, and it's a goldmine of information. And we will share that with the video for you, and worth reading. It's quite a long report, so I've extrapolated the juicy bits for you. So now we actually have time for questions. So here we go. I can come in and see the chat. So, Sian, did you have some questions that you can share from the group? And let me get rid of my, bear with me a moment. I'm going to get rid of my if I can. Yay, there you go. Oh, the technology, the challenges of technology. Right, super. Oh, how lovely. I can see people now. Hello, everybody. You can all smile. It's Friday. Okay, super. Sean, what questions have we got? And then we can open things up.
So from Sundar, is it true that speaker bureaus consider only popular speakers? If so, how do we crack this?
Listen, that's a whole session on its own. I'm very happy to run it. If we have enough people who say, please run a session on speaker bureaus, I will run one. But in principle, speaker bureaus will work with speakers who are generally already successful. Because speaker bureaus will not have the time or the resources to take somebody from zero to hero, if you like. So they would rather take somebody who's already successful and got momentum, help them get higher fees. They're very happy to do that, absolutely. Or if you are hugely topical, if you've just stepped down from a role, if, for example, you've just stepped down from the role of Prime Minister, or head of state, or a CEO or a marketing director, etc., your hot stuff, of course, or if you've done something incredible, then you're interesting. But in reality, bureaus, managers and agents don't really want to start from zero. You have to do a lot of that yourself. That's the bad news. Sundar, sorry about that. Although you're probably famous and in India, so in that case you have no problem. You just need an Indian bureau, right? Sian, any more?
A question from Mindy. How can we as speakers actually influence the market?
Oh, wow. Well, you have to become an influencer. You need to become a thought leader. You need to have something that you can influence about. So Gordon is your man, apparently. Gordon has got his hand. Maybe you need to reach out to Gordon. But yes, you can influence the market. Absolutely. It takes a lot of work and effort, and you have to have a very strong message, and you have to deliver great value. But that again we might have to do that separately. Mindy, I don't think we're going to do that today in one answer.
Next question from Ian Hawkins. Is there some sense in combining trends? For example, using creativity to lead through change, or diversity in resilience?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, you actually, in doing so, you have a unique proposition and a unique position on the topic. So yes, absolutely, really good idea.
Steve Catchett has asked, should we be talking to L&D or to C-suite?
Oh, if you can talk to both, that'd be great. Talk to both. Don't limit yourselves. Definitely, because they're going to have a different point of view, and it also depends on your topic, of course. But if you can get to C-suite, that would be the starting point, who then lead you to L&D. But if you get through to L&D, that's also great. So the L&D now holds good budgets. I would talk to as many people in an organisation as possible, personally, because if you've got one leader who's saying to another leader, "Oh, I've spoken to Maria about this and it was fun. I spoke to her too, and I spoke." Oh my God, your name then is don't rely on one person to carry the message.
A question from John Young. Oh God, it's moving. Top tips on getting the L&D person's attention. LinkedIn just seems to be a swamp.
Actually, I actually am a huge fan of LinkedIn, a really big fan of LinkedIn. But you have to do some research. You can't just blanket. So I personally, if I was trying to get an L&D's attention, I would probably focus on a couple of organisations where I know I can make a difference, or where or that might be in an industry that I have got some history in and I'm known in. So I would try to focus rather than try and make it blanket L&D, and try to build a relationship. And also, I would never sell on LinkedIn. I would build a relationship, start conversation, start engagement. But you need to be seen and shown up regularly, adding value. If you're not adding value, no one's going to be particularly interested in working with you, I think. I don't know. I'm probably wrong in lots of things, but I'm very opinionated.
I agree. I don't know if we're meant to speak at this point. But
do you know what, John? Yes, it'd be lovely.
Hey, we're speakers, aren't we? Maria, thank you for that. That was super helpful. And yeah, I mean, it's that golden nugget, isn't it? Getting hold of the key person. And yes, you can go on LinkedIn and be friendly and put stuff out there and be super helpful. But so much seems to be random and so much seems to be luck. And I'm just curious about whether that's all it'll ever be, or whether there are any actual strategies you can approach. So what you said there was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy if it'd be very interesting to have your feedback on topics that you're interested in hearing more on, because I'm very opinionated on LinkedIn and have a few shortcuts and routes, but there's no genuine shortcut. You've got to do the work, but the shortcuts in terms of where to focus your attention. Sian, are there any more questions before we open it up to full discussion?
Yes, another question from Kate Broad. Do you see reputation management and crisis comms as a hot topic? I'm surprised it's not in the top 10. Any views?
Yeah, it is, but it's not in the top 10 because these topics, when you read the report, are really about the skills that people want to develop within the organisations. Your topic is going to go straight to the leadership team. Yes, but I would go straight to the leadership team with that one, Kate.
Another message from Srijata. I don't see leadership as a topic in the top 10, but would this be a subtopic under resilience and leading through change?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, leading through change, I think is a leadership topic anyway. And apologies if you can hear coughing in the background. That's my little doggy who has a bit of a heart condition. Mindy, thank you. So he's having a little cough.
Question from Tom Morley. Does every booking decision still go to tender, or has COVID changed that?
So I go to tender. What do you mean by that, Tom?
Where is he?
Well, I've heard, and actually with me being a bit quirky, I often am because people need 3 options often around a speaker or an energizer. They put me in as the quirky one to show that they're adventurous, and then they choose the Olympic rower who's got a medal in his pocket.
Right. So when you're talking about tender, you mean are there always being options offered? I think that will always be the case. People are always going to want a choice, and it depends how the person who's booking handles the decision-making process and what they do and how they do it. But normally you will always have a choice. So you've just got to be the option that's totally irresistible, which of course you are, Tom. And maybe you should just have a chocolate gold medal that you.
Yeah, I have as well. I've got Elvis's shades. These are his real shades.
Well, so there you go. Yeah.
Everybody could try them on and do a selfie with me. That sort of thing.
Yeah. So there's always people are always going to want a choice, or even an illusion of choice, and that's always going to happen. And you're always going to lose sometimes to somebody else.
I love that illusion of choice. You're always coming up with these snappy book titles. I'm going to change my book cover once again.
Well, the reason I say illusion of choice, having been in the business for a very long time, and when you're speaking to the sponsor of an event, often they're saying, this is who we want, but I have to show a choice. So make sure that it's clear that, there's some sneaky stuff that goes on.
Well, I could say, you can have me, or you could have this guy, or you could have this guy.
Perfect. And actually, Tom, as you know, I always suggest to speakers that they should offer 3 options anyway. So then the choice is between them and them.
I love it. Thank you.
Excellent.
Maria, can I just dive in?
Yes.
Chris? Quick question. The concept of, as you were saying, offering 2 or 3 speakers, one of the issues I found is that the person who is being offered the 2 or 3 speakers is the booker in comms or in HR, but their decision can be completely taken off the rails by one or other C-suite decision maker who suddenly decides it's actually none of the speakers, it's a friend of theirs, or as I had 3 weeks ago, why do we want a speaker anyway? I can just speak for longer as I'm the chief executive.
That's always going to happen, Chris.
I know.
There's nothing you can do about that. That's always going to happen. Maybe build a relationship with whoever that person is that's jeopardizing you in the C-suite. But that's.
But I think the key point from my experience is trying to get the gatekeeper to allow you to have a call with the decision maker and them.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to be talking to the decision maker. It's very difficult to get booked if you're talking to somebody who has only got the power to say no. You really want to know, and it's one of the first questions you should be asking: who makes the decision? Is it a team of people? Is it one person? If it's a team, I'd like to have the opportunity to talk to all of them. Absolutely, yeah. Sian, were there any more questions that were typed in, because we should obviously prioritise those? Yeah.
Question from Amy: would you consider podcasting as a skill to fall in the tech and digital category?
Oh, I think you should put it in there. I think you should start sharing it. It's certainly, I would say it's probably a communication one as well. Amy, I think you know, because it's already happened, that there is a market for you in the corporate world to get the corporates to create podcasts to use for them. And I don't know, I wasn't privy to that conversation, obviously just introduced you, but I'm imagining that there's two opportunities there for podcasting. One, internal, getting internal messages within the company, but also then external to their clients. So somebody with your skills is going to do very well. Just put your prices up. Okay. Any more, Sian?
No, that's all the questions.
Super. I think we did have a couple of future. Definitely Graham. I don't know, Graham, if you're online or at all, but as a futurist, would love to have any feedback or comments from you as well, if you are around. And while we're waiting for Graham, Steve has his hand up. Steve, tell me.
Yeah, what are your views on the customer experience and sales through service? Because I moved away from communication, and I did do some on communicating in a remote world, but I moved away from that. And I've just not seen any traction on the sales through service method I've been going through.
Sales is so important. Without sales, there's no business. So I really do think, and maybe it sort of requires talking to different people within the organisation. But as I said to you, don't get put off by the fact that if your topic's not in the top 10. Sales is always a priority. It's just people don't like to talk about sales, which is crazy. So I wouldn't give up at this stage. I think you have to keep going, because you will eventually. It always takes a lot longer than you expect to become an overnight success. Always.
Yeah. Glad you know, it's not that I'm talking about direct sales. I'm talking about the customer experience and sales through service. It's the service that I focus on, and particularly the customer focus.
Yeah, but the all end result is improving the bottom line and improving the entire experience. It is an important topic, absolutely. I wouldn't give up. And there are many of the customer service speakers who are doing very well. We see the topics come up regularly. You may need to tweak some of the topic titles, perhaps. I've lost you. You've moved. There you are. You suddenly moved. That was weird.
I lowered my hand. That was all. That must have moved me over.
It does. It moved you. But happy to have a chat offline with you. Graham, talk to me. My future.
Hi, Maria. Thank you so much. This has really been great. Excellent insights as always. I think the only thing to add to what you've got is I would sense at the moment in the hybrid space. So if we go back to your 5 trends in the hybrid space, I think what we're going to see in the next little while is an overreaction back to people trying to get back in the room with everybody. So I don't think it'll go straight to hybrid. I think everybody will romanticize what it used to be like to go to the Birmingham ICC, and they'll forget what the food and coffee actually tastes like at exhibition events, and they'll all be rushing to go back to the room. And I think you're spot on. If as a speaker, I'm based down in Johannesburg, and we can't get out of South Africa at the moment, although our vaccination program has already started. But it might be difficult if you can't travel or decide not to travel. I think there might be a bit of a dip, but then I think hybrid will establish itself. And I couldn't agree with you more. COVID's got a long way to go still. So I think getting a deposit, making sure that if your T's and C's are, depending on how you do that, making sure you have options to be flexible. I think you've got it spot on with us having another year probably of disruption in the system, with an overcorrection and then landing on hybrid second half of next year.
I'm so glad you agree, because we're being recorded. It would have been really embarrassing. Maybe I should have spoken to you first. But anyway, that's good.
No, but I mean, as you've done this plenty of times, and we've been in the industry together long enough, that people need to understand, especially maybe people who are slightly new to the industry, on this, that You want differences of opinion because none of us have got a crystal ball. We're all trying to work this out together. But I think if anything, the key is don't think that there's a normal to go back to anytime soon. And the more flexible, the more responsive to change we can be as speakers and agents, I think the better it's going to be. But again, thank you, Maria. It was a great session.
You're welcome. So we have time for comments, questions. Sean, yes.
So I've got one more question just come in from Sundar again. How about business storytelling? Under what topic of the top 10 would that fall?
I mean, business storytelling would fit under everything, really, because you ideally you want to tell some stories on any topic you're talking about, because people remember stories, and if you can make them funny, it's even better. So I think the storytelling piece it fits everywhere. But if you wanted to put it under one of those, it's probably communication. It's a great way to enhance communication and enhancing how people remember things. My take, but I'm sure others will have other opinions. Susie has a point to add.
On storytelling, it also bypasses the defense mechanism for the listener or the reader or the audience. So it's a really good way for things to sink in without that defense mechanism being up there.
Excellent. So, expert on storytelling. Fantastic. Thank you.
Susie, may I ask, what do you mean by defense mechanism there? I'm fascinated by storytelling as a journalist myself.
Thinking that you're being told what to do or how you should behave or that sort of thing.
I see. Yeah.
Does that answer your? Sorry.
Yeah, that's very crystal.
Sorry, John. I need to tell more stories, John, because I'm always telling people what to do. Sundar, you have your hand up.
When I meant business storytelling, so generally in public domain, people talk about storytelling as a marketing or sales tool. But what I meant is storytelling as a tool by managers, project managers, program managers to convince their thoughts amongst stakeholders, whether it is subordinates, team members, clients. So try to use storytelling. So will it have any place for speakers table?
I think it's still relevant because even in business, if you're telling stories, if you're using case studies and that kind of example, is that what you mean? It's absolutely relevant across everything. I think it adds to it. Sanjay, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi, Maria. So in fact, one of the things I wanted to highlight what's happening in Asia, connected with a couple of things which you talked of, which was the dealing with the stress and being more mindful and time management. I think with the second wave coming in and in all the countries, including Asia, the second wave being more intense, people are increasingly seeing lines blurring and a lot of stress is happening. So in a way, a lot of companies are really trying to get people how to cope up, which is also becoming more complex with remote teams. So I've seen a lot of work being done where time management is not just about the work, but overall also how to really manage your life, or what happens if even you are not impacted, but family is impacted. So I see these two trends actually increasingly merging, and clients are looking for very specific sessions, because that is in turn is going to impact both productivity and possibly even long-term health and other benefits.
Really good point. And it's interesting the point you made as well about very specific. Some of the inquiries we see coming through, because although we're not handling inquiries anymore, we do see them, are really specific, incredibly specific, to the point where you think, oh my goodness, who would, if I had to put somebody in there, who would I put in there to speak? So you've got to really make sure that your descriptions of your topics, and if you are represented by a bureau, that they really understand the detail that you can talk to, because some of the stuff, absolutely right with regards to specifics. Thank you. John, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, I do. Two really simple, quick, factual questions, Maria. Number 5 on your list, I was jotting it all down in my notebook and I got distracted at 5. Can you just remind me what?
Yeah, don't worry, you'll have it in the report. But number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, cross-functional collaboration.
Oh yeah, that sounds.
I mean, for a journalist, that's not good news, John, that you missed that, is it really?
That's a shocker. Well, I got the other 9, and I would have made the other one up.
Okay, noted.
Second quick question. I'm just super impressed with your backdrop and the way you had, I've got this green screen thing going on here, but you had the graphics which was brilliant. How do you do that?
I'm using Ecamm Live.
Live.
Yeah, and the graphics is my PowerPoint exported as a PDF, so I can flick through it.
And that's Ecamm. Can you just spell that? Journalist
Ecamm Live.
Spell that for me.
ECAMM, I think it's double M, and then Live.
Ecamm Live, got it.
If you are on Mac, if you are on PC, I believe you have to use OBS.
No, I'm on a Mac. So
of course, if you want to go Mac, you never go back, of course. Absolutely.
Oh, I don't know, I had all sorts of problems at a virtual conference yesterday where my Mac was too good for their bloody system. It was Anyway, that's not a story. Thank you for that.
Oh, somebody's typed it in. Thank you, Harriet. Any more? So Sanjay, you still have your hand up, and so do you, John, but is that because you haven't taken your hand down? The blood will flow out of your arm if you're not careful. Anybody else?
Yes.
Any more? Yes. Hello, Sylvia.
Hi, Maria. Can you just give us a couple of minutes on how fees are going at the moment? What's the trend? Are they still trying to keep them down if it's virtual? And when you mentioned earlier that a live event might then go virtual, do they try and talk you down on your price?
Right. Please, you guys control the fees, because if speakers reduce their fees, they're the ones that affect the market. What everybody else is doing will affect the market. And when speakers panicked and reduced their fees, when the high-paying speakers reduced the fees and it rolled down and it kept coming, it affected the market. So keep your fees high. Do not reduce them. I would recommend for your virtual fee, it should be your local fee. It's you not traveling, basically, and that's what you should aim for. So if with regards to events, if they're going to turn to virtual, you can certainly say to them, listen, I'm happy to reduce to my local fee because I'm no longer traveling to Spain or whatever, and that was my travel fee. But it's up to us to keep fees high. It's our fault if they come down. I also think that fees for in-person could potentially be at a premium because of all of the additional risks that are involved, and I think you should be charging a premium because you may have to come back and isolate or whatever, or have special permissions, etc. So I think the in-person fees will go up. The budgets are back for clients, so there's no reason to be offering reduced fees. But you have to be good when you're virtual. You've got to have a good setup. You've got to deliver. You've got to be clear on your outcomes. You've got to make sure that you are at your best, which you are, Sylvia, I know, so that's no problem.
Thank you.
Hello, Mindy.
Sorry, unmute. So I found this year that trainer, it has not been a bad word. So it used to be call yourself a speaker, and I've always said speaker, trainer. I now lead with trainer because I do think that fits into what you were talking about. Would you agree?
I hope you don't lead with trainer, but I hope you say that you train. I hope you lead with your expertise. Great. Do you know what? What's wonderful is the tables turned in the pandemic, in that all the keynote speakers who were saying to the trainers, we make more money, are looking at the trainers who are saying, hey, we're making more money. What are you doing, Mr. Keynote Speaker? I'm just lying on the beach waiting for the next event. It's changed. In reality, you need a balance of both, ideally, but not everybody can do both. The keynote sort of, my friend in Asia who runs Speaker said, the keynote often will ignite the fire and then the trainer will keep the fire burning. And I think there is some of that. If you can do both, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. But yes, you're absolutely right. The whole virtual experience where you need engagement and you need learning is very much a training experience as opposed to a one-way delivery. Good for you. Well done. Any more for any more? We've still got 10 minutes if you'd like it, or you can all go and have a cup of tea. Yes, Susie.
Just a technical thing. I always like to download the chat, but the save chat button isn't there. Is that because we're recording, or
I think it's because we're recording, so you'll get it in the. I believe you should get it in the recording. Sian, I'm going to leave you to solve that problem. I hope you should be able to download it for Susie, because I'd like to see it too. I've not had a chance to read it. Tom, you had your hand up and you confused me by calling yourself PSA Netherlands, but I know your name.
Yeah, well, sorry about that. It was I have 2 accounts, I guess, so there was something going wrong when I logged in. One quick question. Talking about virtual press presentations, do clients also look to the quality of these, for example, a good studio? Because I believe you cannot give a presentation behind your laptop, sitting in a desk and with a normal Mac camera. But of course, your speech have to be brilliant, etc. But if they have to choose, will they choose for the exceptional studio or just somebody in the living room?
You have to have both. You have to have the exceptional studio and the exceptional content. Okay. It's no longer either or, it's plus. Yeah. And I've seen your exceptional studio and it's excellent. But what you also need to do, and it's okay today, obviously, but you need to turn up in your exceptional studio every communication with a client, not just when you're ready to present. So they see it from day one. They see, and that it will influence them.
Absolutely.
Like Tom Morley does. He always turns up in his studio. Look at him. Always turns up as a performer. God knows what's going on behind him, really, in reality. But that's your benchmark, Tom Morley. Okay, I think, have we come to an end? Steve.
Yeah, just one quick question on the speaking side, because I generally, my office is rather small. I can stand up in it if I need to, but it's really tight. So I tend to sit on a stool to give me a bit more posture. And if I'm training, I'm sat down in my chair like I am now. Do you feel it's a disadvantage from the speaking aspect not to stand up? You said a while ago that some companies wanted speakers to be standing.
Yeah, some do. In your situation, Steve, I can't tell if you're standing or sitting in reality, so you can get away with it. Some people you can, where if you've got the back of the chair, you can. I personally prefer to stand because I feel like I'm going to project and speak differently. Others who've got experience broadcasting and have sat broadcasting don't seem to. I know that Alan Stevens is very happy to sit, and it certainly doesn't affect his ability to deliver. But some clients do have a preference. So I would ask, but I'd ask everything of a client. Do you have a preference? Do you need me to have your backdrop? Do you need me to? It's the client's paying, so it's whatever they say. But if it doesn't make any difference to how you present, that's fine. I do think it does make a slight difference if you're standing. I think you have a different, physical. Yeah, Mike's agreeing. I can't phrase it. Mike's agreeing. Mindy's agreeing.
Energy. I prefer to stand. Energy. But it's limited space. You make the most of the space you have, and I've got backdrops, and not should I need them, as you know.
Yeah. Well, I've seen your backdrops, and they're very professional. So, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sian.
I've got another question from QJ. Can Maria give us her view on sound quality?
Oh, QJ, QJ should give us a view on sound quality. Sound is so important. And I think you probably raised that there because Steve was a bit soft in his sound. I don't know if that was the same for everybody, but you were a little bit quiet.
Only here, Steve, just butting in there. I wondered if it was me, but if that helps, Steve, sort your mic out.
Yeah, so there's something not quite right there, Steve. So, and I'm sure, I know you've got all the gear because I know you purchased it all. I've got all the gear, no idea. Mic, so important, absolutely, really vital. QJ, you know that answer because you are the sound man, but it's a very good point, well made.
Thank you for the tip on the sound. I just seen my volume was turned right down.
There you go. That's better.
Double checked it.
And now you sound great. And Amy will have strong views about sound too as a podcaster. And in fact, we were comparing the size of our mics, weren't we, the other day when we did a transmission, and they were both big. So now you no longer compare size of mobile phone, you compare your mic size.
I'm quite small, really.
What, you or your mic?
I am Mike.
I love it. I love it. Fantastic. I think we've come to a natural end. Everybody, thank you so much. I'd love to know if you want more sessions and what topics on. And if you need help with your speaking based on anything that we've said, you know where we are. Okay? So have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
I don't know who did the cheers, but thank you.